What is up, Watch fam? Happy Monday, and welcome to this week's episode of RANT&H. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and today we're going to dive into what is unquestionably one of the worst decisions any major watch manufacturer has ever made, ever. All right, before we jump into it, a quick wristwatch check. I am wearing a watch that is about to depart from my safe. This is a Rolex 1601 with a beautiful yellow gold oyster case, matching Jubilee bracelet, and gilt dial. For those of you in the world of vintage Rolex, you know how special this watch is. And for those of you Theo and Harris fans that know my passion for the Datejust, you can only imagine how giddy I am and have been being able to own this watch. You know, it's an honor. So let's talk about the most awful, offensive, disgusting watch that any major respectable watch manufacturer has ever had the audacity to release. I'm talking about you, Panerai. This watch I'm about to talk about isn't new. It was released in 2011, and I've heard this story before, but it didn't occur to me until recently with a lot of Panerai debacle out there in the world, particularly on the vintage end, to bring up this watch. The Panerai reference 318 Luminor, a watch so bad you'd actually think it was a replica. And that is probably the biggest insult that I can drop. So, what is the watch? Why is it so bad? How did Panerai react when people found out? And what does it mean about the brand? What is the watch? 2011, Panerai released the 318 Luminor, called the Special Edition Brooklyn Bridge, for their New York boutique. It was limited to 150 pieces. It all around looks just like every other Luminor, which is no problem. The special edition was this engraved or etched Brooklyn Bridge caseback. Obviously, the Brooklyn Bridge being an icon of New York, but it wasn't just the, Brooklyn Bridge engraving that made this watch separate from the pack of Panerai. It was actually the movement. A movement that I think Panerai never intended for anyone to ever actually see. It was an ETA 6497 of the absolute lowest grade. Not only was this movement completely undecorated, but it even lacked Panerai branding. Panerai didn't even put the word Panerai on the movement. But looking beyond the superficial, looking beyond the lack of decoration, which actually has no impact on the watch's performance, looking beyond the fact they didn't even stamp Panerai on the movement, this was of, like I said, the lowest grade. The big technical difference here, the big variable in this movement that you surely cannot look beyond from a technical perspective was the balance, which they chose to be nickel as opposed to glucidor, formerly referred to as beryllium bronze, which quote-unquote resists deformation from temperature change or abuse much better than nickel, so the balance wheel stays in balance and therefore keeps more consistent time. That's not from me, that is directly from the watchmaker's bench. But we'll take a step back. We'll look beyond the lack of the superficial value, even though I think that every Panerai or every luxury watch should be finished well. Take a look beyond that and look to the technical. And even in the technical space, that this movement totally failed. Specifically, as watchmakers pointed out, their decision to have a nickel balance as opposed to a glucidor. Glucidor being a markedly more resilient material for a balance, which over time resists deformation and allows for more proper and better timekeeping over a longer period of time. It's stuff like this. It's extra dollars and care that smaller brands, low budget brands, brands with minimal market impact, know it's the right thing to invest in, and yet Panerai didn't. Why? That's the big question. Because Panerai didn't know better? No. It's because they never figured that somebody would open up the goddamn case, and they were probably so high off their own and so busy counting their money that they said, who's going to do it? 150 pieces, it's special edition. Nobody cares. It'll keep time. Bad, bad, bad. Panerai got caught, and rightfully so, although I don't believe they ever made an official apology for this disaster. They did offer to replace those movements for those people who own the watch that wanted to send it in. still despicable. Even if Panerai made this right with most or all of the people, here's the big question. And this, once again, comes from a Panerai fan. I like Panerai. But this is the big question. If Panerai had the audacity and the disrespect for their clients one time, right? In what form would they do it again? Will they ever do it again? I think if it was a scapegoat, if Panerai as a company could say XYZ was in charge of this, we didn't catch it, we unfortunately trusted them, I may feel better. I might feel like they were lying. You know, at least there's an explanation and some sort of reassurance that this won't happen again. But without that explanation, without any sort of actual reason and cause, I'm sorry. I mean, it's like you have to check every single little thing. There's no trust. You know, if I walked into Patek Philippe and I bought a $20,000 Calatrava, a snapback case watch, would I want to open up the movement to see it? Of course, it's beautiful. Would I walk out without? Yes, I would leave there giving them my money without opening up the case. But I would expect, because it's Patek Philippe, that the watch's movement, which I did not ask to see, was up to the same standard that we are used to seeing. The standard that Patek has earned over the past, however many years. And unfortunately, with Panerai, it's like you have to check. It makes you feel like, you're going into a watch boutique, you're ready to spend $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000, and you have to do their due diligence for them. And that's a sad, sad thing. So that's it. The cards are on the table. The Panerai 318 is something that you should absolutely stay away from. And I hope that in the future, Panerai works to regain the trust of the thousands upon thousands upon thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of people that now know this watch for the fraud it is. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of RANT&H. Subscribe to the channel down below if you want to talk about watches with us more often. I will see you all tomorrow on In the Metal.